The presentation that you are about to see was recorded live at the American Natural Hygiene Society's 45th Annual International Natural Living Conference, held at the University of San Diego, California. The speaker for this presentation is Dr. Nejla Burton. Dr. Burton is a certified member and past president of the International Association of Professional Natural Hygienists and a past president of the Australian Natural Hygiene Society. She has lectured worldwide on the subject of natural hygiene. Dr. Burton's topic is women's health issues. This recording was made possible by a grant from the James Hervey Johnson Charitable Educational Trust and the support of the members of the American Natural Hygiene Society.
I wish to extend a special welcome to the male gender of the species for having the courage to stay here and listen, learn about your fellow females. In 20th century America, health costs gobble up 14% of the nation's output. As the country holds its breath over how Mrs. Clinton's reform will reshape the health industry, it might surprise you to learn that women visit doctors 7 times more than men. So for every visit by a male, you get 7 times by a female. Nowhere is there more misinformation and blackouts than in women's health issues. We have now a remodeled version of a woman's normal state. We don't have a normal state anymore as far as women are concerned. We have a remodeled version. We have normal women whose normality is so elusive that it must be constantly reinforced by regular checkups to tell you that you're normal. From pap smears to mammograms, perpetual therapies, treatments and tests. Under this paradigm, before she can achieve autonomy, the woman learns that she's normal only to the extent that she can conform to the image of some holy ghost of medicine, I'm sorry to say. So you're only normal if you pass tests. There must be a better way. Let's have a look at how women work, just briefly, how their bodies work. Women's hormone picture as a whole is controlled by a small gland in the brain called the pituitary. The endocrine system employs hormones which are messengers secreted from small glands in widely separated areas of the body. And these hormones move through the bloodstream and carry messages from one part of the body to another and can reach every cell in the body. A pair of these small glands are the ovaries, which control sexual development and the production of eggs, estrogen, and progesterone. So hormones make things happen. They tell other organs what to do. The human body is like a chemical factory, and hormones are, beyond doubt, the most powerful chemicals in the body. They have the power to be physically and emotionally shattering if they are tampered with, or they can make you feel wonderfully alive. And in some cases, less than 1/1,000,000th of a gram is enough to trigger their effect. Over the centuries, the female hormone cycle has been shrouded in mystery. Yet it is a spectacular expression of the female humanness. Briefly, it's simply triggered by the pituitary gland and releases a hormone that instructs the ovary to release an egg. It's not that complicated. The ovaries start to work, and all the potential egg cells in the ovaries begin to grow and produce that master of all hormones of the female, estrogen. One egg bubbles out, on the outside of the ovary, and the egg leftover produces progesterone, which helps make a spongy nest in the uterine lining. If the egg is fertilized, the estrogen and progesterone remain high, and if they're not, the whole lining is shed and you have menstruation. It's not that mystical. So why do women have all these problems? Let's have a look. PMS, which is the medical term used to describe a host of different mental physical problems, such as tired, depressed, irritable, metamorphoses into a monster, hard to live with, so they say. Physical symptoms like joint pains, back pain, migraine. One of the most likely causes of PMS is that the balance of estrogen and progesterone is abnormal. That balance is regulated, among other things, by a healthy liver, which functions as a garbage disposal service, breaking down hormones that are no longer needed and renders them inactive. So the kidneys can excrete all that. Any breakdown in these organs affects this process, which can have many physical effects. For example, PMS headaches that are usually associated with a decrease in estrogen. Another important factor in PMS is that women are having their children a bit later than what they used to do. Years ago, women were often pregnant at an earlier age with a stable hormone level, and therefore less subject to the ebb and flow of their hormones. But unfortunately, biology, as I said this morning, does not evolve as fast as society. Now, these factors are hardly, if ever, mentioned by some gynecologists to their females. As a hygienic doctor, I have to say that because PMS symptoms exist, doesn't make it normal. Because these symptoms are present at the other part of the hormonal cycle in many women. If a person is in poor health, symptoms and signs are exacerbated by slight changes in the hormones. I don't believe that nature intended us to, half the population, i.e. the females, to be inactive and immobilized half of every month. That's ridiculous. We have to be careful that we are not using another label, PMS, to exonerate ourselves from taking responsibility for our well-being. You know, there are some corporations that are intending to have a room where women can go on PMS. I think that's outrageous. Another area related to women's diseases is fibrocystic disease, such as uterine fibroids, ovarian cysts, breast lumps, etc. In general, most of these tumors, cysts, and various tumors are influenced by a woman's hormonal fluctuations, mainly the hormone estrogen. The evidence now is resoundingly clear that excess estrogen predisposes towards tumors, cysts, and cancer of the reproductive system. Excessive production of estrogen seems to be related, among other factors, to high-fat, high-protein diet, usually animal protein. Certain species of bacteria is encouraged by a high-fat diet, and these bacteria grow in the colon, and as a result of that, of a high-fat diet, they have the special ability to break down the complex molecule that includes the estrogen. And it breaks down the estrogen from the non-absorbable complex, and so the estrogen becomes absorbable again, and so it becomes high again. This results first in the higher estrogen level in a woman who eats foods high in fat, and if she also eats the normal hormone-fed beef and chicken, then she's getting a double dose of that. But she's getting it not only from her own, but from an outside source. Once again, there's a blackout. Women are not being told this by their gynecologists. With small uterine fibers, a woman may have no symptoms and problems. If they are large and the woman has had her family, she may be persuaded to have a hysterectomy, accompanied by oophorectomy. That means removal of the ovaries. Could I have a show of hands of the people who've heard of women who've had hysterectomies, please? Thank you. Could I have a show of hands of people who you've heard that have had their testicles removed? Discrimination. Over several years, many gynecologists have been promoting this operation, which is major surgery, as a simple solution for everything from backache to contraception. To legitimize this form of castration of the female, some doctors describe it as a possible breeding ground for cancer. The death rate for hysterectomy itself is higher than the death rate for uterine cervical cancer. The reproductive organs, including the uterus, identify you as a female, just like the testicles identify the men as males. And estrogen has many other functions other than reproduction. For example, estrogen affects protein and fat metabolism. Cell activities are always done by many things, including estrogen. If cysts, tumors, and fibroids develop, initially a period of supervised fast is indicated, followed by a rigorous hygienic program. And I have seen hundreds of women at our clinic in Australia recover from these without the mutilation by a surgeon's lethal scalpel. Let's have a look at the maze of lethal choices among surgical, chemical, and mechanical solutions to simple things like contraception. The oral contraceptive pill, even though today women are given the low dose of oral contraceptive pill containing synthetic estrogen and progesterone, the documented evidence indicates that there are several risk factors, among them cancer of the breast, nausea, vomiting, pigmentation of the skin, circulatory disorders, headaches, etc. The synthetic hormones in the pill increase cholesterol, some of them to increase cholesterol and triglycerides, increase blood clots, which can lead to strokes. I have a girlfriend of mine who just had a stroke as a result of the OCP. She's only 45, and other serious problems. I would urge those of you on the OCP to switch to some other form of contraception, such as the Billings method, based on changes in the vaginal mucus. Also, seek the cooperation of the male gender of the species. I'm sure the hygienic males are much more aware than the general population in that. Surgical sterilization, tubal ligation, interrupts or blocks the fallopian tubes to the uterus. This prevents the egg from being fertilized. The research is now confirming that up to 90% of women who have the surgical tubal ligation have hormone deficiencies and imbalances after tubal ligation. Why? Because it depends on the damage to the ovarian blood supply. You're not just only cutting off the fallopian tube. The production of estrogen is most likely to be affected. Why? Because estrogen needs more oxygen for the many steps of a synthesis. So, and it is by the ovary. If the ovarian blood supply is reduced by tubal ligation, the supply of oxygen to the ovary is diminished, resulting in inadequate estrogen. Women with inadequate amount of estrogen will typically complain of loss of libido, fatigue, loss of feminine physique, difficulty in losing weight, vaginal dryness, bladder problems, reduced orgasms, poor memory, and musculoskeletal aches and pains. Because estrogen is necessary for the maintenance of collagen, women with low estrogen complain of more rapid aging of the skin and aches and pain as collagen is lost from the skin and bones, also increase in cardiovascular disease and osteoporosis, as you'll see shortly. The development of such hormonal problems in young women who have had ligation is a gradual one and may take years to show up. In recent times, menopause has been rediscovered, the cessation of menstrual bleeding. Menopause, or as the feminist Germaine Greer calls it, the change, can be either a time of total upheaval or the person may sail through it, scarcely noticing the changes going on in her. So the word change is inaccurate. Many women fear menopause as a miserable, difficult period from which they emerge as bent and wrinkled old women at risk of broken ribs and deformity. It seems to me that when women become free from the possibility of impregnation, one of the time-honored means of imprisoning females is removed. So the menopausal women, up till now, have been escapees from the therapies. But now it's been rediscovered. There is no longer a natural state of femaleness that is allowed in the gynecological state. Menopause is therefore, like diabetes, a deficiency disease, and it has to be cured. Certainly, this is the impression some medical literature gives with its emphasis on estrogen deficiency and osteoporosis. The influential American gynecologist Vicky Hufnagel believes that the decline in estrogen that follows menopause, quotes, is a state unique to humans because of our extraordinary longevity. For those who see menopause in such a pathetic and negative light, it is inevitable that the response would be to interfere with nature by putting back, in quotes, deficient hormones. But far from being nature's mistake, I believe menopause is one of her triumphs. The most incredible feature of the human brain of the human being is the brain, not the uterus. There comes a time when the woman can make more vigorous contribution by her intellect and wisdom rather than her babies. It is, after all, menopause, not brain pause. So nature protects the woman from the risk of repeated pregnancy by changing her hormonal levels, thus affording the woman more valuable years of stability and uninterrupted energy to actualize herself. Ours is a youth culture, for women particularly, whereas men think they look rugged and handsome when they carry the mask of experience. Women whose faces lose the smoothness of youth are not considered to be so eloquent. More is the pity. By far, the greatest hazards of menopause are psychologically and culturally induced. A psychologist working in China reported that she has never seen a menopausal psychosis in a Chinese woman, because in China the older woman has a respected and coveted position. Women need to change and adopt an emotionally healthy attitude towards getting a little bit older. Of course, undeniably, some physiological changes are there. The estrogen levels fall, but by how much? That's the problem. As I said, the balance of these hormones is very important. If a woman is living on a high-fat, high-protein diet and other negative aspects of lifestyle, leading to, as I said earlier, high estrogen level, obviously, when she reaches menopause, there is a sharp drop in that estrogen. And then obviously, her symptoms are going to be more severe. Hygienists in general have lower estrogen levels than the general population. So when a hygienic woman reaches menopause, the drop is not so sharp. So the symptoms are hardly there. As a result of this drop in the estrogen, the number of eggs decline, and there is a fall in the progesterone, that's the other hormone. The luteinizing hormone produced by the ovaries rises. This is often used as a test to see if you are menopausal, luteinizing hormone. A sudden release of this hormone is linked with hot flashes, where there is vasomotor activity to dissipate heat from the body. Please understand, menopause does not mean no more estrogen. This is a myth promulgated by some gynecologists. Men have estrogen. There is no person who can survive without estrogen, not really. It is not, if it's not produced by the ovaries, it's lowered by the ovaries, but if it's not only produced by the ovaries, but in many other parts, such as the fat tissue, adrenal glands, the uterus produces estrogen. The most serious of the long-term problems that can afflict some Western postmenopausal women is the silent thief. What is that? Osteoporosis. Why is it silent? Because you don't feel anything. Where the bones lose minerals, mainly calcium salts and protein matrix, making the bones porous and thinner, like Swiss cheese. We must first separate osteoporosis from osteopenia. Osteopenia is the normal decrease in bone mass as every one of us gets older. And that is the biggest mix-up with the problem of osteoporosis. It's an expected thing, osteopenia. But osteoporosis is a pathological disease. There are several lifestyle factors that contribute to bone loss. At a time when osteoporosis is rife in Western women, it is regrettable that the myth of high intake of calcium and calcium supplements should be potentiated. So women's information services tell them to drink more milk, eat more protein. If I hear that once again, I'll go back to China. Let's have a look at this. Who in their right mind would say that Western women do not eat enough protein? They eat fish, chicken, meat, eggs, cheese, drink milk, take dairy products in general. They consume some 150 grams of protein and more a day. The recommended daily allowance is 50 grams of protein, although you really need to no more than 20 grams a day. When a person is on a high animal protein diet in excess of their requirement, they are in what is called a negative calcium balance. That means that they are losing more calcium from their bodies each day than they are absorbing from all the foods that they are taking. How is that? Well, most of the proteins we eat are broken down and enter the bloodstream as amino acids. Some of these are used for the body's various needs, and the rest is metabolized in the liver into a powerful diuretic called urea. Now, when the urea reaches the kidneys for elimination, it takes with it not only water but calcium, large amount of alkalizing calcium salts. Here is the blackout that is not being given to women, the misinformation. The more protein that you consume over what your body needs, the greater the loss of calcium. And you cater for that loss from, guess where? Your bones. Your body needs to remain in positive calcium balance. That means the amount of calcium introduced from all sources into the body is greater than the amount lost. And this is achieved by taking an amount of protein closer to your needs. In general, your protein is, if your protein intake is over 80 grams a day, you'll be in negative calcium balance. If you are on a lower protein diet, your body will take care of your positive calcium balance. The story doesn't end there. Women are also bombarded with more misinformation about taking calcium supplements for combating osteoporosis. They are being recommended to take 1,500 mils a day when you only need approximately 200 milligrams a day to maintain calcium balance. Most people in the world get by on 300 to 500 milligrams a day without any osteoporosis. And you know, high calcium damages your kidneys, you have kidney stones and many other problems with them. Most people that I've seen in our clinic, most people who have osteoporosis are people who have had a hysterectomy, people on chemotherapy, people who smoke, people who take steroids, for example, asthma or kidney disorder, people who drink alcohol because it causes the liver to metabolize faster, and people who take tetracyclines and aluminium-containing antacids, thus increasing the urinary calcium excretion. Aluminium interferes with mineral metabolism, causing bone damage. Most importantly, as women get older, they tend to be less active. Activity in the form of weight-bearing stimulates the build-up of bone, as you probably have already heard. With osteoporosis, as with all conditions, you need to have your organs working well. For example, if the integrity of the stomach and the intestine is compromised and you're not producing enough HCl, you can't digest food and extract nutrients, resulting in the bone integrity being at risk. If you have an underactive parathyroid, you have osteoporotic problems. If you drink too much alcohol, as I said, it causes the liver to metabolize estrogen faster. And that's not a good idea for osteoporosis. If the kidneys are not in good shape, vitamin D can't be used. So, because vitamin D can only be transformed to its usable state by the kidneys. For these reasons, osteoporosis has been called a disease of liver and kidney. What a far cry from menopause. So you can clearly and unequivocally see that it is misleading to couch osteoporosis only in terms of diminished levels of estrogen after menopause. Women who seek medical help with menopausal problems are not given this information. Indeed, their menopause is treated, as I said, not as a natural phase of female function, but as a deficiency disease, like diabetes. And so they are prescribed HRT. HRT, hormone replacement therapy, usually means a regime of estrogens and progestogens. Progestogen meaning a synthetic substance released, related to progesterone, which a woman takes on a cyclical basis like oral contraception. The progestogen content causes the uterus to shed its lining on a regular basis, as though the woman is still having period at age 75. You still have your menses. How natural. In its early days, hormone replacement therapy meant estrogen therapy alone, because it was considered that these estrogens help with menopausal symptoms. Then in the mid-70s, it was discovered that estrogen on their own, would you believe, yes you can, could cause cancer of the endometrium, lining of the uterus. So now, progestogens are added supposedly to prevent this problem. But all the combined preparations contain sufficient to fully oppose the effects of estrogen, and there is evidence the combined preparations increase the risk of cardiovascular disease. To be continued. Hormone replacement therapy is made up of either natural or synthetic products. Synthetic estrogens are manufactured in labs, in laboratories. They are chemically foreign to the body's metabolic systems and so are not easily broken down by enzymes and can accumulate, causing them to be stronger than the natural estrogens. For example, the synthetic estrogen brand name estrogen is 30 times stronger than the natural estrogen of the woman, estradiol. The synthetic estrogens are more likely to cause metabolic changes in the liver, leading to increased side effects such as fluid retention, blood clots, aching legs, high blood pressure. Other brand names are mestranol and stilbestrol. Natural estrogen is mostly developed in laboratories where a chemical replica of the ovaries' estrogens are manipulated. Another popular type, the so-called Premarin. Ever heard of that? That's the natural estrogen, which I'm sure most of you know, is extracted from pregnant male urine. It's a mixture of human-like estrogen, estrone sulfate, and some more potent equine, meaning horse, estrogen. So Premarin is good natural hormone replacement therapy for horses. Because of Premarin's potency, it too causes metabolic changes in the liver, leading to high blood pressure, high cholesterol, varicose veins, thrombosis, strokes, and a host of other gifts or side effects. So you supposedly decrease your hot flashes while you manage to get cancer eventually. This is iatrogenesis, iatrogenic gifts with a vengeance. Understand that the dosage of these drugs vary depending on how rapidly your enzymes break them down. For example, the brand name Ogen, another hormone replacement therapy, is 3 times stronger than Ovestin, and estrogen is 300 times stronger than Ovestin. And it is recommended that your gynecologist is able to accurately solve this puzzle. I say he's God's elder brother. And you're supposed to take this for the rest of your life. You take hormone replacement therapy in various forms. Orally, on a cyclical basis, usually progestogen. Progestogen is taken for 12 days of every calendar month, and estrogen twice daily for 21 to 25 days for the rest of your life. This will cause a menstrual bleed at age 78, although now we have designer HRT, haven't you heard, to meet with a woman's schedule, please. In women with a uterus, that is those who have not been persuaded to have a hysterectomy, progesterone must be taken for 12 days to prevent uterine cancer. If estrogen is taken alone, there is a marked risk of cancer of the uterus. The main reason for giving women HRT is to prevent osteoporosis, but estrogen does not promote the formation of trabecular bone, but only retards the breakdown. So a woman who's already suffering from fractures, who has been and is still on a high-fat, high-protein diet since early age, is inactive and has poor health habits, would not only be helped by HRT, but she compounds the problem by taking it because increased estrogen levels causes calcium leaching as well. With the high-fat diet and high-protein diet, the estrogen therapy is negated. Once again, this is another blackout that the women are not being told about. If you stop taking HRT, there is a rebound period of very rapid bone loss, where bones quickly shed off the tissue that was artificially sustained by your HRT treatment. Nor do you need HRT to protect you from cardiovascular disease. What you need is a good lifestyle, not HRT. I won't go into details because we are getting a little bit late here, and I want to hurry up what I have to say. As much as I resist the temptation, I have to say that the relationship between some gynecologists and women's health problems is indeed a very ugly one. Some members of the gynecological profession, the pharmaceuticals, and the popular media have combined their efforts to make the poisoning and the mutilation and the castration of women to appear normal. Coupled with some food industries, such as the dairy industries, they have tried to normalize and popularize atrocious therapies and have proclaimed a blackout on judicious, sound preventive advice, starting from very early age, to keep women as perpetual patients, where they represent 7 times more than men on seeing the doctors. Patients for life, a remodeled version of the natural state. We need to topple existing paradigms and discover bold new ones. Women, and sometimes men, have inadvertently encouraged victimization by not educating themselves about these matters and by having abdicated responsibilities for their own health care. I urge you to get away from slavery to treatments as a substitute for a good lifestyle practices and set yourself free. Thank you.
The American Natural Hygiene Society teaches people how to maximize their health potential by living in harmony with nature. The society, which is dedicated to health education, is the oldest national vegetarian organization in the United States. Its motto, "Healthcare is Self-Care," is a reminder that health is the result of healthful living. For more information about the American Natural Hygiene Society, its award-winning publication Health Science Magazine, and for a complete list of all the Society's books and tapes, call 813-855-6607 or write American Natural Hygiene Society, P.O. Box 30630, Tampa, Florida 33630. This recording was made possible by a grant from the James Hervey Johnson Charitable Educational Trust and the support of the members of the American Natural Hygiene Society.